Please be seated. Again, thank you for being here. We start our program with the invocation of the Pledge of Allegiance, performed by a member of the recruit class, Recruit Alexander Piera. Come up, please. Please stand. Please bow your heads and pray in your faith as I pray in mine. Dear Lord, thank you for blessing us. Thank you for all the recruits of BRC 459 and 463. Most importantly, thank you for their families and their loved ones who have traveled from many distances to get here. Lord, please bless everyone as we depart this evening. Place your hand over them as they head back to their homes. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. In our class this evening, we have about 5 military veterans that have been in the military most recently, as opposed to some old folks like us here. We have, with the veterans in our class, would you please stand and be recognized? You have a lanyard, rope, turn around so the audience may see you. And we'd like to thank you for your If you would remain standing, I'd like to recognize all of the veterans that are in attendance tonight. Would you please stand and be recognized? Thank you for your service. I'm honored this evening to have an old friend of mine, and I should maybe say a young friend of mine, Chief Glenn Sapp from the Quincy Police Department. Chief Sapp is a product of Quincy, Florida. He attended public schools in Gadsden County and then attended Florida A&M University, graduating with a BS degree in criminology. Chief Sapp worked for the Florida Department of Law Enforcement before joining the Tallahassee Police Department, where he worked for nearly 25 years prior to retiring as the Patrol Division Captain in 2011. Chief Sapp then joined the Quincy Police Department as the Assistant Chief of Police under Leon County Sheriff Walt McNeil, who is in attendance tonight, before coming to Quincy Police Chief in 2014. Chief Sapp is a Gulf War veteran, having served with the United States Army in Saudi Arabia in 1991. He is married and has 3 adult children. Chief Sapp is a frequent motivational speaker and trainer to youth and community groups and has been a featured speaker at the Florida Attorney General's Preventing Crime in the Black Community. In 2018, and the National Forum of Black Public Administrators National Conference in 2013 in Atlanta. Chief Sapp has given numerous other presentations both locally and around the state. Chief Sapp is a published author of From Prison to Promise, How I Went From Prison to Police Chief, which is available on Amazon. And that is such an interesting subject that I am looking forward to hearing the title of that, From Prison to Promise, How I Went From Prison to Police Chief. Chief Sapp is affiliated with the following organizations: Kiwanis International, International Association of Chiefs of Police, Florida Police Chiefs Association, NAACP in Tallahassee, Urban League, former board member of Tallahassee Homeless Shelter, former board member of AM Kids, member of the Excellence Church in Quincy, Florida, 100 Black Men of America, FAMU Alumni Association, and former Boy Scouts of America Assistant Scoutmaster, Troop 160. Join me in welcoming Chief Glenn Sapp.
unless you plant the seed. There can't be attainment unless there's a goal, and man is just a robot, if not for his soul. If we send no ships out, no ships will come in, and unless there's a contest, nobody can win. For games can't be won unless they are played, and prayers can't be answered unless they are prayed. An old man was walking down a beach one morning, and far off in the distance he saw a young boy reaching down on the ground and picking something up and tossing it out into the water. When the elderly man approached closely to the boy, he asked the young man, he said, "Son, what are you doing?" And the young boy said, "I'm picking up starfish and I'm throwing them back out into the ocean because the sun is coming up, and if I don't, they'll die." The old man kind of laughed and he said, "Son, there are thousands of starfish out here." He said, "What difference can you make?" About that time, the boy picked up another starfish and he tossed it back out into the ocean, and he looked at the man and he said, "I made a difference in that one." So for you graduates tonight, I pose the question to you as you begin your law enforcement careers: what difference will you make? What difference will you make? We are in a time of extreme danger for police officers and deputy sheriffs and even firefighters. We're in a time of great controversy. And this is the moment that you all have chosen to enter into what my former boss, Sheriff Walt McNeil, would call the world's most noblest profession. It's a great profession. It's a great profession. So you have to decide, however, the difference that you're going to make. Disproportionate minority contacts, implicit bias, racial profiling, excessive use of force, discrimination. These are just some of the complaints that sheriffs and police chiefs and majors and captains at police departments all over America deal with every day. Every day. So how do we prevent these complaints of racial profiling, implicit bias, that little hidden bias that we all have in our subconscious, in our mind? Those little fears that we have about people who are different from us. There are 3 bits of advice I'll give you for overcoming those things that you don't want to ever be accused of, but you may in your career. Number 1, be honest. Quite simple. Be honest. Tell the truth. We're all going to make mistakes from time to time, and no one expects you as a rookie police officer or deputy sheriff, no one expects you to be perfect. But we do expect you to be honest and tell the truth. If you screw something up, be honest and say, "I messed up." If someone accuses you of being rude and you go to IA and they question you about it, don't lie. You're not going to get in that much trouble for being rude. But be honest, because I've seen cops fired and I've seen careers ended for people lying. Because we take an oath to protect and serve. Where we get confused sometimes is people, ordinary citizens on the streets, they didn't take that oath. So their value system may be different from the value system that we profess to hold true. So be honest. Number 2, be fair. Be fair. And number 3, live by the golden rule. I'm not talking about he who has the gold makes all the rules. I'm talking about the golden rule of treat others the way you would want to be treated. And when you guys get with your departments and you're going to be assigned an FTO and you're going to graduate from field training and You're going to become solo. And you're going to get assigned to a squad. And you're going to make some great friends on that squad. But you're going to meet some people at your department who are being led by their egos. By their egos. You're going to come across some officers who seem to be spending more time trying to make the big drug bust. Or you're going to come across some officers who think they're Romeo or Don Juan or something like that, and they're trying to always get dates. Be careful of the voices that you listen to when you become a solo police officer. There was a group of frogs that were traveling through the woods one day, And as these frogs were traveling through the woods, two of the frogs fell into a very deep pit. Very deep pit. The other frogs, about 6 or 7 of them, they gathered around the top of the pit and they looked down, deep down at the other 2 frogs. They could barely see them. And the frogs at the top began to tell or yell to the frogs in the pit, "Give up! You'll never get out! It's too deep!" The frogs at the bottom, the 2 that had fallen in, began to attempt to jump out of the pit. And they were very deep. The 5 or 6 at the top, again, what are they saying? "Give up, Chief Perry, give up! You're not going to get out. It's too deep. Save your air. Just die peacefully." Well, one of the frogs, and they were exhausted, they jumped about halfway up. One of the frogs began to let those words settle into his subconscious. And he became depressed. And he leaped, Sheriff, he leaped off the side and he leaped to his death. The second frog kept jumping. All the while, "Give on, hey, for Freddie, just don't quit it, just stop. Man, save your energy. Just die in peace. Just die peaceful." But he kept jumping. He kept jumping. And eventually, he made it to the top. And he jumped out. When he finally gained his air and he stood up, the 5 other frogs walked around him and they said, "Man, didn't you hear us? Did you hear us when we told you to just give up, save your energy?" The frog said, "Huh?" He said, "I'm deaf. I didn't hear nothing y'all was saying." He said, "I thought y'all was encouraging me." The moral, graduates, of that story is be honest, be fair, and live by the golden rule. Don't get caught up with the crowd. Don't get caught up with Mr. Ego. Don't get caught up with Mr. Miami Vice that's always looking to find the 2 kilos of cocaine in everybody's car. Do what's right. Prison to promise, real quickly, and I'm going to try to be brief, which Sheriff McNeil knows is extremely difficult for me. The 3 B's: be brief, be to the point, and be seated. So that book that I wrote, graduates, it talks about, I was raised by a single mother like a lot of you, like some single mothers in the audience. And my mom raised 7 children. She and my father had 6 children together. And when I was 3 years old, my father had become an alcoholic. And he had become very abusive. And when he got drunk, he would beat my mother. So my mother divorced my father when I was 3. And so from the time of that age, I never knew my dad. I knew who he was, but I never knew him because he was never around. He was never in the picture. So my mom raised the 6 children, plus she had another last child, 7 kids. Dad never sent any child support, never called on Father's Day or never called on birthdays or anything like that. So I didn't know my dad growing up. When I was about 19 or 20, we got a phone call. And I think I was a sophomore in college at this point. I just got married and my daughter had just been born. I think I was 20. We got a phone call from one of my father's sisters that he was dying. He was in the hospital and he was dying of lung cancer. And that if we wanted to see him, meet him, that we needed to go to the hospital. The hospital was in Augusta, Georgia. So all of our siblings, we all got together. I had a brother who was in the Air Force in Hawaii. He flew home. So we gathered up one morning. We drove up to Augusta, Georgia. And we went into the hospital, or we went into the infirmary, because my father was in prison. He was in a penitentiary up in Augusta, Georgia. And so we went into this penitentiary and we visited with the dad that had been an absentee parent, a deadbeat dad. And my father had been a tall man, about 6'3", thin, wore a large afro, which was kind of the norm for black men in the 70s. But his face was distorted. He had lung cancer and he had a tumor on his neck, preventing the fluids and blood from draining out of his head. So his head was swollen like the size of like 2 basketballs. And he was in the final stages of lung cancer, so he couldn't even sit up in the bed. He just lay on the bed. And we went in and we visited with him. And we prayed. And I asked God to release any anger or animosity that any of us children might have had toward my father. And we did. And we left it right there. And then when we left that prison, I made myself a promise that if I had children, which I had just had a daughter, she was probably 4 months old, I was going to do my damnedest, excuse my French, to be a better dad to my kids than my dad had been to me. And so you graduates, you are following in the footsteps of some great men and women. Some great men and women. Mr. Eunice, the sheriff, the majors and captains of all of these great departments, and not even majors and captains, but just line career officers who never made any promotions. So you got a lot to live up to. I tell you that story just to say it doesn't matter, because you all come from all different backgrounds. Whether you're white or black or Latino or Asian, whether you're male or female, you all come from all different backgrounds. And some of you come from some situations somewhat similar, somewhat to my situation. And your peers, you probably haven't told your peers you got a brother in prison, or, or whatever, dad was in prison, or, you probably haven't told them that. But that's okay. Because see, with God, I believe all things are possible. All things are possible. Booker T. Washington was a slave. And he became the first president of the Tuskegee University. You guys anybody heard of the Tuskegee Airmen? Well, Booker T. Washington had been a slave, and he walked 500 miles at the age of 16 to go to Hampton, where he was referred by a white man who had been a colonel in the Union Army. And after he performed so well at Hampton and graduated, this gentleman selected him to become the first president of Tuskegee University. And Booker T. Washington loved this poem called Equipment. As police officers, men and women, you're going to become very familiar with equipment, because you're going to get issued, I know those of you going to TPD and LCSO, you're going to get issued so much equipment, it's going to be hard to keep up with it all. And appreciate it, because one day you may wind up coming over to Quincy and working for me, and you won't get quite as much equipment. But what you will get is world-class training and motivation and inspiration. And what you will get in about a year and a half is a job offer from LCSO or TPD. Okay? But this poem says, so listen to it carefully. It says, figure it out for yourself, my lad. You've all that the greatest of men have had. 2 arms, 2 hands, 2 legs, 2 eyes, and a brain to use if you would be wise. With this equipment they all began, so start for the top and say, I can. Look them over, the wise and great. They take their food from a common plate with similar knives and forks they use, with similar laces they tie their shoes. The world considers them brave and smart, but you've all they had when they made their start. You can triumph and come to skill. You can be great if you only will. You're well equipped for what fight you choose. You have legs and arms and a brain to use. And the man who has risen great deeds to do began his life with no more than you. You are the handicap you must face. You are the one who must choose your place. You must say where you want to go, how much you will study the truth to know. God has equipped you for life, but he lets you decide what you want to be. Courage must come from the soul within. The man must furnish the will to win. So figure it out for yourself, my lad. You've all that the great men have had. With your equipment, they all began. So figure it out and say, I can. I'm going to share one last story with you, and then I have an exercise just for the graduates. And then I'm going to sit down and I'll be done. There was a Spanish conquistador, and his name was Hernan Cortez. And Spain gave this conquistador commander, they gave him the task of going and conquering the Mexican nation, the Aztec nation, of all its gold, silver, and precious stones. For some 600 years, European nations had attempted to conquer the Aztecs and to acquire this great wealth, but no one had been able to do it. So Cortez and some 600 Spanish sailors, 16 horses, and 11 boats, they landed on the Aztec coast in Mexico. By the time they got there, the journey had been so long that most of the sailors were exhausted, and they'd become bitter that the journey had taken so long. They thought by now they would have been there and back home. So they were bitter, they were sour, but they landed. When they landed, they were on the beach, and Cortez, who was the commander, began giving them speeches to try and motivate them because they were getting ready to go to war. They were getting ready to go to battle. So he was trying to motivate them. And he couldn't quite see that spark in their eyes. So he said 3 words that lit that spark. They were on the beach, the ships were out in the bay, and he said 3 words. And those 3 words were this. He said, burn the boats. Burn the boats. I'm sure everybody look around like, what did he say? Did he say burn the boats? Burn the boats. And they burned the boats. He began to see that little flicker of light in the soldiers' eyes. Because at that moment, they knew that there was no turning back. When I left TPD in 2011 and came to work for Sheriff McNeil in Quincy, I had a very nice office at TPD. Sheriff is kind of smiling over there. I had a real nice office at TPD. Chief Connell over there at Capitol Police was there at the time. He was kind of one of my supervisors. And when I got to Quincy, the sheriff took me to my new office. And he opened the door to that new office. It's an inside joke a little bit. The sheriff knows what I'm talking about. I kind of thought about TPD. I wonder if I can go back if that ink is dried on that retirement paperwork. Guys, there is no turning back. You guys have, on a serious note, you're swearing to do a job that may require your life. These are dangerous, perilous times when people are going into elementary schools with assault rifles, and I did say assault rifles. I was in the Army. I know what an M16 is, and I know what an AR-15. I have both. And killing little children. And guess what? It's going to be your job to make sure that doesn't happen as best you can. You may have to lay down your life. Guys, when I was in Saudi Arabia, I was walking through the desert one night. Would you hand me that little brown bottle? box there. Thank you, sir. I was walking through the desert one night, and I came across a tent. In this tent, there was an old Bedouin camel herder who invited me to come into the tent. And so I went into the tent. It was late at night, and we drank tea. He offered me some tea. They drink a lot of tea in the Middle East. And it turned out this guy was like a shaman, like a wise man, like a guru. And he asked me if I had questions about mysteries of life or questions about success. And I told him that I did. So he told me to go over to the corner of the tent, and there would be a box over there. And I went over, and this was that box. He gave me this box. And he told me inside this box is the answer to the mysteries of life. And inside this box would be the answer to all of my problems. And so what I want to do is I want to share with you graduates. I brought this box home from Saudi Arabia, so I want to share with you guys. You want to look in the box? Anybody want to look in the box? If I were you, I'd be like, man, you said all the mysteries to all the life's questions. Rebel, I'd be wanting to look in the box. They kind of like, yeah, I guess I'll look in the box. I guess you're going to make me look in the box anyway. Well, let's do this right here. Let's start from, we'll do this real quick because I know we got to get on with the graduation. Real quick, if you would just come over, starting from over here, just come on over and just single file, come on over. But just stop a little bit so you can't see. Just stop right about there. And we'll do this real quick. Just open the box up and look deep in there and see the mysteries. Just flip it. Oh, I'm sorry. It helps if I turn it around. Next.
Got a damn thing of that box.
That is just hard to know. So hard to know.
Listen to her.
You guys can just keep coming. So they can split. It's all good.
Listen to me. You're not listening to me. Hold it down like this. You see that? Now sit back and try it. Pull down with your finger. Like this. Like that. Okay? There you go. You have to try it, but you've got to learn to listen. Pull down.
this stage of your career. You're fine. All right, guys. And if anybody wants to see the answers to all the mysteries of life, just I'll set this on the desk down here. Guys, congratulations. We need you guys so bad. The society, the world needs you guys so bad. But guys, remember, don't judge your success by how many arrests you make. Don't judge your success by how many tickets you write. Don't judge your success by even how much dope you get off the streets. And all those things are important in their own respective place. But remember the question that I posed at the beginning of this talk was, what difference will you make? People were snorting cocaine and smoking crack when I started. And now they're popping meth and Molly. And so people just seem to love dope. Make a difference in a child's life. Become a mentor. Coach a little league football or basketball team. Those are the things that your chiefs and sheriffs, those are those extra little things they're looking for. And I can give you that bit of advice for free. Those are the things that, along with being a good cop or a good deputy, those other little intangibles, those are the things that will move you up the ranks, get you promoted. So God bless you. Thank you, and good luck.
Inspirational speech. Chief Sapp, I'm looking at Sheriff Walt McNeil, and I'm thinking back on the age difference, and I believe he trained you. And David, what do you think about that, buddy? Great job. Very, very moving. Departments, Capitol Police with Chief Chris Connell and Deputy Director Mark Glass. Thank you for being here. Florida Department of Agriculture, Colonel James Wiggins and Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Williamson. Thank you for being here. Florida State University Police Department and my mentor, David Perry, Chief David Perry and Deputy Chief Terry Brown. Florida Supreme Court Marshal Sylvester Dawson. Franklin County Sheriff's Office Major Cliff Carroll. Monticello Police Department Chief Fred Mosley. Lakeland Police Department Assistant Chief Victor White. And my friend, Leon County Sheriff's Office Sheriff Walt McNeil and Under Sheriff David Folsom. Liberty County Sheriff's Office Captain John Summers. Tallahassee Police Department Chief Michael DeLiro and staff. Thank you everyone for being here. Give them all a big hand. I don't know if I can top anything, but I got to tell you this story. You were talking about the wonderful Gadsden County and Quincy. Glenn, my wife and I we were taking a drive a couple of Sundays ago and just driving around the countryside of beautiful Gadsden County. It was just absolutely wonderful. She and I got into a heavy discussion, and I'm not talking behind her back. She's that beautiful blonde sitting over there. I'm not talking behind her back, but we got into a heated discussion. One that I thought that I could win, but I needed to think again. So we